From our humble beginnings in Africa, early humans radiated throughout the globe over the course of tens of thousands of years. Many theories about what motivated these people to travel to the great unknown have arisen, from curiosity to climate change. One thing that is for certain is that the speed to which these Homo sapiens spread, geologically speaking anyway, was incredibly quick. From what evidence we have today, the American continent was the last major landmass to be populated and signaled the global reach of our species. Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the first human settlers of the North American continent. As you may know, the question to exactly when and how this occurred is still up for scientific debate. The Clovis first theory refers to a hypothesis that the Clovis culture represents the earliest human presence in the Americas, arriving about 11,000 years ago. However, evidence of pre-Clovis cultures has accumulated and pushed back the possible date of the first peopling of the Americas. A fair estimate would be that humans first arrived on the continent between 13 and 20,000 years ago. But further findings could change this. In this video, I will be focusing on the settlers that arrived 13 to 20,000 years ago, as it is based on the most evidence that we have at the moment. What is widely accepted is that the origin of these first settlers lies in Eastern Asia. The common occurrence of mitochondrial DNA haplogroups A, B, C, and D among Eastern Asian and Native American populations has long been recognized. In 2019, a study was published by researchers who found that Native Americans are the closest living relatives to 10,000-year-old human fossils found near the Kolyma River in northeastern Siberia. Having established these first settlers' origins, the question is why and how did they make it to America? As to the why, it is widely believed that these people were nomadic hunters of the megafauna that called Siberia and Beringia their home. During this time, much of the oceans were trapped in ice due to the lower global temperature, which would in turn have lowered sea levels. This is how the landmass of Beringia appeared, also known as the Bering Land Bridge. It connected what is now Alaska and eastern Siberia. This landmass is thought to have lasted from 30,000 to 11,000 years ago. After this, rising sea levels swallowed it up and it became part of the Bering Sea once more. The process of this migration likely lasted hundreds to thousands of years, where these nomadic populations gradually spread out and settled further and further east, always following the great herds of mammoths, bison, and other megafauna. Eventually, they would make it to the American continent, and therefore be able to travel south and also inland to central Canada and America. The journey south was much more rapid though. This is due to an ice-free corridor located between the Cordilleran and Laurentide ice sheets, which engulfed much of North America at the time. This leads us to our discovery of the site in Clovis, New Mexico, where these people get their name. Radiocarbon dating of artifacts found at the site date from 13,000 to 12,600 years ago. Again, there is evidence of earlier populations found, but for the purpose of this video, we will be using the Clovis as a starting point. Imagine that you are an ancient hunter. Your job is to go out into the wilderness where very few, if any, humans have lived before, and to kill a 6-ton creature with 8-foot tusks. The tool you will use to do this is a stick. Ready? This sort of challenge may sound absurd, but it may also have been the reality for ancient people in North America. Megafauna like woolly mammoths were once eaten by the Clovis. The Clovis culture was relatively brief, existing for only about 400 to 600 years between the 11th and 10th millennia BC. But in that time they managed to spread across all of North America. It is the oldest verified culture in the Western Hemisphere, and even if we accept the existence of pre-Clovis people, the Clovis were the first to leave behind evidence of a strong and uniform culture. Ancient life must have been tough, but the Clovis people were apparently up to that challenge. As with many other hunter-gatherer populations around the world, their dwellings would have consisted of temporary shelters made of mud, branches and thatch, depending on the resources available in the area at the time. Unfortunately, these types of temporary structure are not built to last, so we have no evidence of this in our archaeological records. Clovis human remains are almost as rare, in fact, as we have only one single skeleton. The truth is that we don't know if the people who lived across North America at the time spoke the same language, practiced the same customs, or even thought of themselves as sharing a culture. What we do know is they all used the same stone tools, collectively referred to as the Clovis toolkit. The toolkit revolved around a fluted stone spear point known as the Clovis point. The Clovis point is bifacial and typically fluted on both sides. Clovis tools were produced during a roughly 300 to 400 year period. The design was clearly effective, since this is the only time that all of North America relied on a shared set of tools. The continent became incredibly diverse after the disappearance of the Clovis culture. Available genetic data shows us that the Clovis are direct ancestors to roughly 80% of all living Native American populations in the North and South of America, with the remainder descended from ancestors who entered in later waves of migration. First and foremost, the Clovis people were hunter-gatherers. They, for the most part, would mirror their ancestors who crossed Beringia, migrating with the megafauna they hunted. To some extent, this would continue on to the Native Americans the first European settlers would meet thousands of years later. These indigenous peoples were still migrating with the bison herds they relied on for food and materials. It is thought that the main food source for the Clovis were mammoths, mastodon, and an extinct species of bison, which I have mentioned in a previous video about Ice Age megafauna. Many bison bones have been found at Clovis sites, along with the distinctive Clovis points. The most commonly held perspective on the end of the Clovis culture is that a decline in the availability of megafauna, combined with an overall increase in a less mobile population, led to local differentiation of lithic and cultural traditions across the Americas. There are theories that the Clovis played a large part in the extinction of the megafauna due to overhunting. However, this theory is contested by some scientists who blame the mass extinction on climate change. I would say the truth lies somewhere in the middle. The Clovis people would have been a significant contributing factor to these animals' extinction, but also climate change, possibly caused by a comet collision with the Earth leading to much colder temperatures, was also probably a factor. After this time, Clovis-style fluted points were replaced by other fluted point traditions, such as the Folsom culture, with an essentially uninterrupted sequence across North and Central America. An effectively continuous cultural adaptation proceeds from the Clovis period, sprouting new cultures and civilizations through the ensuing Middle and Late Paleo-Indian periods. These future civilizations would go on to build thriving cities and travel further and further south along the American continent. They possibly founded the Olmec civilization in South America, although how humans arrived in South America is also up for debate. You could say that the Clovis culture didn't really go extinct. Rather, it evolved and diversified as their population grew, and can be seen as the dawn of civilization in America, which lives on in Native Americans to this day.